keeping close tabs on that oil leak in Marathon. And the Bahamas Electricity Corporation received rented generators in a few days. So don't go anywhere. The Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
Good evening, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis. Thanks so much for tuning in. Topping the news, the minister responsible for the environment, the Honorable Kenrick Dorset, says the government has taken steps to mitigate the impact of that oil spill on residents in the Marathon community. In fact, he says recommendations from a report into that service station leakage were carried out, and ongoing monitoring will continue. Meantime, the health department will conduct surveillance and screening of residents to determine and prevent any health concerns. Sieska Adderley picks up the story from here.
More than 2 years after that spill, residents in the Marathon constituency are still reportedly being negatively impacted, in particular those living in Highbury Park. This issue came to light after a report conducted by the Best Commission was released recently. Since then, some have criticized the government for withholding the findings of that report for more than a year. But the Minister of the Environment and Housing, the Honorable Kenrick Dorset, expressed satisfaction that from his ministry's perspective, remediation was done to international best practices. Meantime, health officials, he says, will continue to monitor the situation for at least another 5 years.
That was one of the reasons why we brought in Black & Veatch to review the remediation plan to ensure that it was correct, so that we make sure that some of the risks are obviously that have been mitigated and alleviated don't reoccur. But I think that we want to ensure that people do not panic.
Minister Dorset outlines actions taken by the ministry after being made aware of that spill.
Based on what evidence was provided to us, was that they normally monitor on a month-to-month basis the amount of fuel that is delivered to the fuel station against what is actually sold. And they saw a shortfall. And that shortfall then led to an investigation as to why, and then a leak was discovered. Immediately after being notified, the relevant agencies within my department took action together with other agencies of government, which also include the Ministry of Works and their Volatile and Substance Unit, and also the Ministry of Health and the Department of Public Health and the Water and Sewerage Corporation.
The Environment Minister maintains that the government is doing all it can to ensure that the health and safety of those affected is protected. Overall, he says he is satisfied with what has been done so far. Sieska Adderley, ZNS Network News.
The Bahamas Electricity Corporation also taking action to not only prevent future power outages, but to reduce the impact on consumers. Next week, BEC will begin receiving generators it expects to rent from Agreco to provide 40 additional megawatts. BEC Chairman Leslie Miller telling ZNS News that at least one major hotel is seeking compensation for losses incurred during a recent island-wide blackout.
When we had that massive outage in New Providence a few months ago, Paradise Island, Atlantis, has now requested that BEC compensate them for the losses that was incurred by that world-class resort. And we're having that now from other customers as well, the major customers, that in fact, due to the interruption, they've lost customers, they've lost funding due to it. And we have to address those situations. And we're hoping that we'll have less interruption this summer, certainly than we had last summer, because last summer was terrible. And that's why we're renting these generators again with that additional 20 megawatts on standby in case we need it.
Now, hotels like the Atlantis Resort on Paradise Island are said to be key consumers for BEC, paying the corporation $5 to $6 million a month in electricity costs. According to Mr. Miller, BEC has insurance in place and is now engaged in talks with insurance representatives to determine how best to compensate the major entities. From the crime beat, a group of Jamaican women, among others, taken into custody after police raided another nightclub. Flying squad officers acting on intelligence descended on a nightclub located at Rosetta and Madeira Streets, where they met 12 women from Jamaica along with 2 Bahamian women hiding in a secret room. The officers suspected the women to be at the nightclub for the purpose of solicitation for prostitution. They were taken into custody and also faced charges for the breach of the Immigration Act. The club owner was also arrested for breach of the Liquor License Act and for solicitation for prostitution. Well, for years, many persons who appeared before a judge had no legal representation. The issue is made more acute as a number of those accused of serious crimes, including murder, have no attorneys at all. Now, to assist those unable to afford a lawyer, the Public Defender's Office is one step closer to becoming a reality. Fern Carey reports that new directors have been chosen to head the initiative.
6 people have been named as the new directors of the Public Defenders Program as the government moves to ensure that everyone has access to justice regardless of their financial situation. The Public Defenders Office will operate independently of the Office of the Attorney General and will be managed by the Legal Aid Clinic. It is unclear at this time when the Public Defenders Office will open. However, Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson noted that the new directors include experienced jurists, a former senator, a leading psychiatrist, and a religious leader.
Retired Justice Joseph Strawn, Mrs. Cheryl Bazard, Dr. David Allen, Archdeacon James Palacios, and the President of the Bar, Mr. Ellsworth Johnson. We're so grateful that they've agreed to serve as the first directors of this historic Public Defenders Unit.
Public defenders represent criminal defendants who cannot afford an attorney, and the establishment of a public defender's office is expected to address ongoing challenges faced by defendants who appear before the court on serious offenses without legal representation. President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Anita Allen, has recommended that consideration be given to amending relevant statutes to provide legal representation at the expense of the state to ensure that constitutional rights of the poor are not breached and that they receive a fair trial. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
And still to come, find out why male students are pushing for top careers. That story and more when the Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition, continues.